Oh, good evening, everybody. My name is Rob Gonda. I'm the Vice President of Ohio Middle Level Association, and we are excited for you to be joining us here for our night talking about special education at the middle level. A couple reminders, this session is being recorded. We record it so we can send it back out to folks who were not able to attend tonight because we know it's a busy time of year. And I wanted to start off tonight by saying thank you. This has been an extraordinary school year, and you can take that both positively or negatively, depending on your situation. But we know that you are working hard to work with the kids with special needs at the middle level. And that takes a special type of person and a special type of effort. And so I really appreciate that, not only from my position on the board, but also I'm Associate Director of Student Services with the ESC of Central Ohio. And I get the pleasure of working with many of our programs that service students with challenges throughout Central Ohio. So I know firsthand how daunting the work can be, how rewarding the work can be, and that this has been an extraordinary year. So thank you. A couple other reminders. Our state conference will be happening in Columbus in November. We would invite you to put in now to come join us. We will be celebrating our 50th year as an organization, and it's going to be quite an event. I even think there's going to be a night where we can dress up. And so how often do you get a night as a educator to really dress up, have some fun, party with some of your friends? So it'll be an event that you will not want to miss. John Gordon will be our keynote speaker. And so if you're looking for more information on that, please go to our website. And finally, we have one more virtual PD session, and that will be happening in May. And that session will be a celebration of things in the middle level. We are actually finalizing our final speaker, but what you need to know is we're going to have giveaways. We're going to have prizes to give away, gift cards. I even heard some Indians, I said Guardians tickets. I'm still having a hard time. But we'll have lots of different things to try to end the year on a happy note. So hopefully you'll be able to join us in May. The signups can be found on our website. Well, that's it from me. I'd like to introduce Melissa and Meredith, who are going to facilitate tonight's session. They are both members of the OMLA board, and they work very hard all year round, and really appreciate them taking the time to organize us tonight. So with that, the stage is yours, Meredith and Melissa. Again, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Do you want me to start, or do you?
Go right ahead.
Okay. My name is Meredith Stanton. I am a 5th grade intervention specialist at North Royalton Middle School up around Cleveland area. This is my 24th year teaching. I actually taught 10 years. I was a health and phys ed teacher, and I did adapted PE. And many people would say, what was I thinking when I switched over to be an intervention specialist? But my answer to that is that I felt like I could do more. So I loved doing the adapted phys ed. I just felt like I had another calling in doing more with kids and helping out kids in a different way. So I've been doing that for 14 years. I also am in the team coordinator for our special ed department in the middle school. And then I joined OMLA as an affiliate, started off as an affiliate in 2015. And then I joined the board in 2019. So I had been doing contributing to a lot of different ways, not on the board to OMLA, just because I was so happy with being around the people and learning so many new things and just loved the experience of it. And then was lucky enough to join the board in 2019. And then I have also presented a few times, about 4 times at OMLA. So that's a little bit of background about me. And I have 2 children, a 6th grader and a 4th grader, who have been, I think, knocking on the door a couple of times tonight already. So Melissa, I'll let you go ahead, introduce yourself.
My name is Melissa Stanton. I am an intervention specialist at Liberty Benton Middle School. So I have 6th through 8th grade this year with reading, writing, science, social studies, 9 weeks of health this year for a wide variety of abilities. This is year number 23. All have been in special ed. I was a self-contained ED teacher for almost 10 years, both in 1 year in Cleveland and then all in Findlay. Let's see. I joined OMLA probably 2015, 2016 as just a regional person to help with things, and became the regional rep last year, in Northwest Ohio. Sorry, the bird just knocked into my window outside. Not children. My children are, one's up at Bowling Green State University, a freshman up there, and then I have a freshman in high school. So a little bit different of age ranges for right now. But yeah, Meredith and I talked about this probably in the spring of last year, and then summer workshop, and just because we didn't see anything for special education. And I think both of us have the passion for special education and need to get things out. And it could be a very lonely group of people. So that's where this came to fruition. So.
All right. So I had gotten a list of participants last week, and I sent out a survey. I'm not sure if everyone had gotten that survey that's on here tonight. And through that survey, it kind of guided us to what we were going to talk about tonight. Certainly, if anyone else has anything they would like to discuss, we can throw it in there. But the top areas were behavior management, executive functioning tips, data collection, and actually burnout tips. So we're going to take those, and how do we get through that burnout? Since it's been kind of a rough few years, and this year's been a little rough in probably different ways, but we're going to kind of focus on those areas. And we're talking about doing breakout rooms. I think there's only 15 of us. So I guess we can decide if we want to do the breakout rooms or we just want to stay on together and discuss ideas. We wanted it to be interactive and let people talk tonight and kind of give their ideas and thoughts. We will share a little info on each topic from ourselves, and then hopefully get some other tips and ideas from everyone else on here too. Since a lot of our PD is a presenter is talking all the time. I'd like to get some of our participants in and give some of those ideas too, because I'm sure everyone out there has some great ideas also.
I think we heard a lot of those great ideas at conference when you and I met with the special ed roundtable. We got some of those great ideas, and that's where some of these questions had even come up. And people had some amazing resources and were willing to share. And we just want everybody to be able to jump in and share those resources also as readily as you're willing to give to us also.
All right, Melissa, do you want to start with the behavior management side?
Sure. One of the pieces of behavior management, and I know everybody is seeing it, is these students who are just kind of rude. And what do you do when a kid shuts down, or what do you do when the kid refuses to do work in specific classes? And I actually got to deal with this today. I had one of our students who decided he wasn't going to work. We have a paraprofessional in the class, and he was ridiculously rude to her and lounging across the table and all of that. So she covered my class, and I ended up going to where she was supposed to be. And him and I chatted a little bit, and he goes, "I'm just tired." I'm like, okay, well, doesn't matter. We still need to get things done, kind of deal. And so that piece I said, we're going to email mom and we're going to look at certain things. I have found where I am currently, parent communication, positive, negative, all of it has been huge. Even though we have Schoology and parents can see the grades, they're not seeing the behavior pieces, or they're seeing them at school. We're seeing them at school, they're seeing them at home, and they don't know what to do. So we kind of, with this one parent, have a united front, and we were able to talk through things. And he was like, well, what are you doing? Emailing your mom and you, because you need to be part of this conversation. Well, what are you writing? And I told him exactly what I was writing. And he's like, that's not true. I was doing this. Great, let's put that in there also. So that piece has been huge with me. I have a very flexible classroom. where I have flexible seating, we have couches, and we have all of those things. And I've had students who've said, you know, every school needs a space like this, a calm down space. Even if it's a corner in the room, corner somewhere, just for kids to decompress. We expect them to sit, we expect them to work, we expect them to stay seated. I can't sit still. And those are the pieces that are missing from education, I think, currently. I know I'm not the only one seeing them. Meredith, what are you seeing up towards your end also?
I'm seeing some of the same things you are. So we have some kiddos refusing to do work. And I know that's been a question of how do we get kids to do work? I will be honest, I've gone through probably a ton of different methods, whether it's a mystery motivator chart, it's just a regular sticker chart, or offering different items to do work, but it's a constant battle. But I think in that behavior management piece is understanding, getting the time to understand the student. In this particular student that I'm working with now, who technically is not on an IEP yet, but I've kind of taken her under my wing, and because I think some of the other teachers, they just can't handle that too much of amount of her behaviors, to put it that way. But getting to know her, it's taken this long from the beginning of the year to now to finally start to see willingness to listen, not to bark back at me or talk back. She might give me a look a little bit, but she's more willing to listen.
Which is really nice. That relationship piece is huge.
And I know it takes time. I hear it from, I get from gen ed teachers like, well, you have a little more time, you can do that. I'm like, well, we need to find those ways of connecting. Whether it's 5 minutes here this day, 5 minutes the next day, it's finding those moments to connect and finding those things that they can trust you and building that trust in, and it is hard work.
It's sometimes goofy. It's goofy things. I have one who, he had a keychain full of emojis that was so distracting in class. So the next day it was the emoji feelings board. He goes, that's mine. And he did the work then. And he worked all of the class period. And here's a kid I hadn't gotten anything out of for 2 weeks, but because it was that stupid little keychain that was driving me crazy, it was his motivator to work. He saw value in him in the piece of it.
So on that note, do we want to go into breakout rooms, or do we want to just stay all together? I see one shaking head that I can see. Teresa.
Sure. Maybe we'll get staying together. Maybe we'll get some more ideas.
So does anyone want to share anything, your thoughts, feelings? Like, don't be afraid to do that. This is what we want. We want some little, I think that's good to start just having that conversation and just thoughts and ideas. No one's wrong. No.
And I'll just jump in. You can also put your comments in the chat box, and I'll be happy to read those for you. So if you are a little shy, and you don't want to talk in front of anybody, I'll be glad to do that for you.
I've also started to realize, I think some of the behaviors we're seeing with kids go to without the next thing you and I were going to talk about, with some of the executive functions of being able to be around people, being able to manage the workloads, being able to manage all of those different pieces. And if they can't manage everything all at once, they're going to shut down. And I've seen it with my own kids. Like I said, my daughter's a freshman in high school. When she doesn't want to do work, she crochets. And we take her crocheting stuff away. And I know it's silly, but because she gets so overwhelmed, she doesn't know where to start. And I think some of our students need that. Where do I start first? And making it into those small, manageable little tasks before we can go further into those pieces. And like Meredith said, those relationships are huge.
I agree. I think relationship is king with all behaviors actually, not just special ed, but and those phone calls home go a long way. They really, really do. Just they're, you're letting the parents know that you care. And when they know you care, then they know that we're all on the same side. It really does. I think it really does help a lot. So,
Yeah.
I think another thing we need to keep in mind is behaviors are a communication tool for
Right.
children. So, and which goes along with that executive function and not knowing how to communicate those behaviors. And I think a lot of our kids have experienced if traumas. I know a lot that I work with, their traumas, whether it's broken up families or they're living with grandparents that because they're broken up families, or there's drugs, or there's other abusive things going on, or a loss of a parent. All
Or
those
just even COVID, just being
Right.
taken out of the school environment to have to go virtual and then not knowing what's going on. I think that's something that everybody has dealt with.
And we've noticed that a lot of theirs, maybe the disrespect, or they don't think they have to listen, or some are not, they're walking out of the classroom. They're leaving the classroom. And I've had these discussions with my assistant principal about structure and not able to handle structure because of COVID and being home, online, in school, out of school, in school. And then now we're back in, and that loss of the structure and knowing how to handle the expectations and
Right.
things like, and rules or directions and things like that. So some of that is them not being able to handle that. But I do think, and I always remind the teachers and my colleagues around me, is that there's a reason for the behavior. And it's taking the time to get down to figure out what is the cause of that? What is the reason behind that behavior? Because you're going to find out that you take that moment and really can get them to trust you, and you sit down and talk to them, they're eventually going to reveal it. And you're like, oh my gosh, it was that, but yet they give you
insignificant to you, but it's
Right.
really significant to them.
Yes.
And just like Katrina said, relating to those behaviors, just like you said, and situations really do show that you care.
Hey, Melissa, Meredith, I'm just, could you kind of talk a little bit about what do you do in the, heat of a moment when behaviors are happening? You're trying to not reinforce that behavior. Do you have any tips to kind of help folks that you found helpful? I was talking about a student today who they were a runner. And so the teacher was running after the student, which was reinforcing the behavior. So we had to kind of teach the new behavior. So do you have any tips or tricks for maybe people who are maybe at their wits' end or really dealing with some challenging situations?
Thankfully, I don't have runners. I am thankful I don't have any runners, but we do walks.
Mhm.
Our building is an interior square, and there are plenty of cameras. I can say to a child, and I'm the type of person, I'm not going to call them out in class. I prefer to have private conversations with them to save some of their face and respect them and all of that. So I'll say, hey, let's go have a conversation in the hallway. And if we're going to have a conversation in the hallway, maybe we're going to say, why don't you go take a break? Take a walk around the lap of the building. How many laps do you think you need? Or is it going to be one? Do you want someone to go with you to talk through some of these what's going on right now? And that's really helped in my situation. But it took a while to get there. So I have a small group situation where I only have 2 students for science and social studies. It's my lowest group. And we do walking agendas every day. And it starts with, well, what'd you have for breakfast? What'd you have for dinner? Just the basic check-in. So when the behaviors do go, I'm able to say, okay, let's go take a walk and talk about things, because they realize that's now their safe place to have that conversation. So I will say, go get a drink of water, go do this, go do that. And that seems to help a little bit to diffuse the situation and get them away from some of the behaviors so that others in the classroom don't start escalating. because that's one thing I don't want to have happen is while I go from here, then next person carries it on and next person, we still have a whole classroom full of fun going on at that point in time. So I try to take them away from the situation in order to have that privacy, to allow them to have a moment and to get themselves back in a focused frame of mind, either with somebody or not.
That's kind of what I do with ours. We have, I don't have anyone that we're afraid of leaving the building, that they may leave the classroom, but not the building. And so I do have one that kind of takes off. And if we kind of learned that in the beginning, if you follow them, because you want to keep an eye on them throughout our whole big building. And then we decided we have our crisis team. So we usually help each other out with radios. So we can kind of station ourselves around to kind of keep an eye on him if he's roaming around if he's really angry and going through our building. But for the most part, we have kids that we just, okay, go get a drink, take a walk around our pod, take a couple laps. I have another student who, well, the same one that will take off sometimes out of the room. We have built-in breaks. So we know the classes that will trigger things. So I have a counselor in my para who throughout the week, they each take certain days and they know those exact times and they meet with him at those times to give him a 10-minute break. And it's like a sensory break or just talking, building that, rapport with them and the trust and anything that he might need at that moment.
Do you get any pushback from teachers at that point?
No, because no, I have not. They agree with it, and I have pretty good teachers that will want anything to try and help out. I mean, they look at myself, and I have another intervention specialist. There's two of us in the 5th grade. So they kind of look at us for any behaviors. They're like, oh, just take them. We've dealt with a lot of them this year, even not, any kid, any student. So, and we do have a sensory space in our room. So we can allow them to go in there that we built this year based off a grant and our own money that we built. So that has been very helpful also.
And, I'll also suggest, we use the AIM curriculum at our behavior schools. So we do have 2 schools that are, all students are ED. So it is a interesting environment, but we use the AIM curriculum to really try to teach students new skills. And so if you're looking for a starting point, that might be good summer reading when you are refreshed and you're thinking about next year going in. I would also say, at least at our ESC, we are looking at BCBAs and RBTs to help teachers in the classroom and intervention specialists. So there might be some things there that you might want to reach out to your own ESC and see what they have plans to support you next year.
And one other thing we started doing was one of our teams. So we have 3 teams of 4 teachers each in our 5th grade. So one of them with one of the counselors, we're seeing increase of behaviors after lunch and recess, of course. So they incorporated a mindfulness activity or video going into that period right after lunch. So the first 5 minutes of that to see if there was any less issues in the afternoon. So we've been doing that for a while, and she said it seems to have decreased some of the behaviors that have occurred. It kind of gets everyone back and present. And I'm big on kind of the mindfulness piece and doing those videos, like just watching some of those, just to kind of bring back to be present and be ready to continue on the second half of the day.
So I'm just looking at the chat, and Lindsay just shared a quote that she loves. Beneath every behavior, there is a feeling, and beneath each feeling is a need. And when we meet that need, rather than focus on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause, not the symptom, by Ashley Warner. And that's pretty awesome. Elizabeth said that they do cards because some of the kids struggle to verbalize what they need. So it's a card for a walk to drink, walk to the office, walk to IS classroom meeting to follow, so we can talk. And I like that idea also. I know a couple of years ago, I used to code Post-it notes, that if kid put a Post-it note on their iPad, I knew exactly where they were headed to go. some good ideas there. Oh, and Katrina said that everybody needs a minute sometimes. And that's true. I used to put myself in timeout as a parent when my son was getting in trouble in school and I was dealing with it all day at school and then coming home. I gave myself a 10-minute mandatory timeout every day. And some days it was not pretty because I was starting to carry those behaviors over and I didn't want to as a parent. So. Thanks for sharing, guys. I appreciate it. So.
All right. I know we could probably go on and talk about that, continue. Does anyone have anything else they want to share before we sort of move on, I guess, to another topic?
Rob just put in the resource for the AIM curriculum, behavior analytics, social emotional development. That might be a good one to look at. So might be a good one, a session to have at conference. All about behaviors.
And I use zones of regulation for some of my kiddos, if anyone's ever heard of zones of regulation. So
I use a little bit of anything I can, depending on the kid. So, okay.
All right.
So should we talk about the next topic of executive functioning? Because it kind of all ties in.
Yes, it does tie in.
It really does. And I was looking at last night. Okay, so I put a question out on Facebook. This in a couple of years, we're planning to move. We know this. I know that I'm going to be out of the classroom because where we're moving to, I don't want to teach. So what I did is I put out on Facebook, what does everybody think that I should do in my next, once I grow up? My next career. And one of my son's friend's parents said, we need executive functioning coaches for our kids in college that have missed a couple of years of high school due to COVID and are now in college and don't know how to manage their time, organize their materials, being able to do all of those things that we may take for granted as adults. And she goes, there are people that are paying hundreds of dollars for coaches, executive functioning coaches to work with kids. And I'm like, sign me up at this point because I want to go through the course just to be able to bring it back to my classroom. And just being able to, what works for kids. And she goes, when they were younger in middle school, we had iPads. So I would always teach my students first day of school how to set an alarm on their iPad. Well, when you get home from school and you know you have to get homework done, make sure you set an alarm for 3:30, get your homework done for an hour, work on it and stuff like this. And starting with those pieces. Most kids in the middle school have never used a planner. Most kids in high school have never used a planner. So they don't know how to manage all of these large projects and all of those pieces. Meredith's thinking, I'm watching her eyes go.
Well, I know, I think also, again, I think a lot, we assume they know how to do things and most of them have not been taught some of those skills. Right. And I always say, technically our executive function doesn't really go till 20, like when you're 21, does it really, fully develop
at that point?
Right. So I look at a fifth grader and when others can't understand why they just can't get it together or they are so disorganized, I'm like, well, we're not all the same. Some of us are learning at different paces. Some of us are just not there and don't see the importance of it, or it's just a little harder. But I think it is troublesome. And I think that does lead into, like, as we were talking behaviors, the executive function piece does extend into that. Because I think some of those kids know they don't have those skills but don't know how to deal with it, don't know how to ask for that help. So we really have to be cognizant of knowing which kids are struggling that way and really make the effort to provide them with those skills and, strategies.
Or reorganize them. And we find a system that we know the system works for us. It should automatically work for them without any buy-in from them or any input from them.
That is correct.
And that leads to, well, they can't find the papers because we're the ones that organize them. They have no ownership in the system, or like you said, being taught how to use the tools that they have accessible to them, how to read a calendar. I know we use Schoology, so being able to look at the calendar to see what assignments are due, and then being able to break things down, or being able to manage their time efficiently, being able to organize a locker. How many times do we see lockers that are just spewing out into the hallway with their stuff because they don't know how to organize it all? And they have papers from the very first day of school in their binder that they no longer need, or the picture form from the third day of school is still in their binder because it never even made it home.
Hey, Melissa, Schoology, or you are friends with Schoology. Do you have any tips for executive functioning in the cloud? I mean, a disorganized kid with the trapper keeper who's overflowing is probably a disorganized kid with 1,000 folders or files all over the place. How do you handle that?
We color code everything. And that sounds really stupid in my realm of reality. And I start with an agenda every day. So, and that stayed from COVID because I would put up an agenda when we were virtual and everybody knew where they needed to find everything, and everything was linked. So that I helped with that, and it started that. And when we went back face to face, I asked my students, well, what do you want? They go, we want to keep your agenda and we want to keep the color coding of folders. So one of my first questions I asked my students, is there anybody that's colorblind in my class? And the only reason is because then I have to adapt to that and maybe put an icon on each of the folders. So anything in my Schoology folder this week it's week 3. Every week 3, it's a yellow folder, and everything in that folder has a yellow background. So I teach my students that if they have a paper that from this week, put a yellow dot on it. And we go through everything every Thursday in our class, Academic Assist. We have a time period for intervention and academic assist. So we color code everything. I teach my students to color code everything. When we do something in Google, we change the color of the background of the document so that we know exactly what week it goes into. And we put the date on everything. So when we go to title something, we'll title it 420 and then exactly what it is. Science, homework, page 22, and then I put as much as possible. Yes, our titles might be long, but at least we're able to find things, and we make sure that they're putting things. Okay, it's Monday morning. You should have a yellow folder in your Google Drive for this week. Let's label the folder. Let's label everything and put everything you need in there for reading English, science, social studies. Even if I don't have you for a class, put it in there for that week's folder. So when a teacher says that they're missing something from 420, I know exactly what week color we can look at. It's on my calendar, which is on my board. I just draw a line with that color marker so they know exactly what folder. Then we can go back and look in there for that.
I'm going to say wow on that, Melissa.
Why? It helps me to be organized.
Yeah, but it is the routine.
It is
the routine for kids, and having things listed on the board for them.
Yeah,
and it can help everyone. It's not something, having the agenda on the board, having a routine, those things are going to help all your kids.
And because we're Schoology, I do embed that agenda right into a page, so that if I notice that I have 3 kids absent, I will put direct links into those assignments so they know that I was absent on 420. I can just go to that agenda and click on the links to be able to get to right to my assignments. So there's no middleman. They know exactly what they do. Yes, is the first 9 weeks of school a learning experience? Yeah. And when I have students with a 60 IQ, a low IQ, it helps them feel ownership also, because they now know how to find their own material. And there's no letters and no numbers or anything. They know exactly what folder to look in just by that. At one point I did pictures on the folders. but then my folders on Schoology are huge, and it was not very user friendly. So I've done even icons in the title of the folder, so that we know that every time you see a bunny, it's week 3, it's a yellow folder, it's all of that. And then I also put it on the calendar, and parents know to look for it in addition.
There is a comment from Tanya. I don't know if we want to, I'll read it for the group. We are lucky enough to have a study hall at the end of the day. So I help my students at the beginning of the year prioritize their homework in their agendas with a number 1, number 2, number 3. We add notes to the list, and then students know exactly what order to complete assignments.
That's a great
It's helped a
idea.
lot of our students, and by this time of year, they can do it on their own. That's great.
That's
I like
awesome.
that idea. That I may have to incorporate for next year, because we're going to go, I think, to a shorter time period. I like that. I have a couple of students that we have, our teams have a Google homework sheet. So each grade level has a Google homework sheet by subject, and teachers put all their homework on it. I have a couple of kids that we have to print it up for. I print it for them. And they said the satisfaction of crossing things out with a Sharpie is so good to them. So we make sure there are Sharpies on hand, and crossing it out, as show it to me, let me see that it's done. Cross it out, I initial it with a different color pen each day, and that helps them see that, oh, I don't have to do that, it's already done. I like that, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna have to steal that one. Thanks for sharing. Yep. Tell my students to make the list and literally cross it off so they see they're accomplished. I'm the type of person that adds stuff to my list just so I can cross it off, because I know I've already done it. And sometimes that's all it takes is a motivation for it. For some of them, I tell them, let's make a Google document and just keep like a Google Keep, and just have them add things to that also. But it goes back to, like Meredith said, all of those routines and teaching it and heading off, because once we do that, we start to head off those behaviors. So.
All right. Anything else on that? No more comments? All right, so we'll go on to our next topic that was brought up, as data collection, which I am always going back and forth on my methods of data collection. So, however, this year, and I know some of this is comes up with, do the general education teachers collect it? Is it just intervention specialists? Sometimes those are the big questions. I know when we talked about this at conference, I think that was one of the biggest things, that like not getting the cooperation from the general education teachers. It was basically all the intervention specialists to do that. But with our, there are specific goals and objectives that probably do need to be in kind of like a small group or pull out type of way to collect that data. But there's also, I feel, goals that are within the classroom that can be taken within the classroom. And I have struggled with this, getting any data collected from my general education teachers. However, this year, we've made a little step. So in our building, we've been focused on LRE, least restrictive environment, and we spread out. In the past, we've had our kids kind of on 2 teams. And so you've kind of been overloaded on teams with students in co-teaching classrooms, and that was getting frustrating for many people. So the idea is we spread them out. So on all 3 teams. Now for the intervention specialists, that means we're working with 15 different teachers throughout the day, could be. However, it has made a difference when we only have maybe 2 kids or 1 student that's on an IEP in a classroom. It's much more manageable for the general education teacher if we're not in there for something. And my success this year has been with any behavioral or executive functioning goals or objectives, and then collecting data. That's probably my success this year, is I've actually gotten progress monitoring done through that. Academically, that is more of a challenge. And I know a lot of teachers want, intervention specialists want to know how to get your gen ed teachers to collect more data for you. But I do think what I did at the beginning of the year is, and my other intervention specialists that we worked together, we actually created binders for all our general education teachers this year. So in those binders were their own schedules with the students that they had that either were on a 504 or an IEP, which were in each of their classes. And then it would identify kind of the areas that were needed to be looked at. Also within that binder, we created collection sheets. So usually with mine, I put the objective and then I'll just have little boxes across, and I try and simplify the objective so that they understand it a little bit better and know what it means. Because sometimes I think some of the objectives are written, I get those coming up from 4th grade to 5th, and those are not as clear. But there's been some little successes. And then there was a time this year I said, well, you didn't provide me with anything. That means I have no information for my progress report. And so that kind of puts them a little on the spot, because I'm like, well, I gave you the sheet to complete and you never completed anything. And that's kind of a risk that you take. I kind of behind the scenes make sure I get something, but I'm also kind of like, well, I didn't have enough because you didn't do like more writing assignments, or that's a struggle with us, is getting enough writing in that will meet the needs of my children without giving them more writing on top of what they're already doing in the classroom. So what else?
Being in the small group setting, what I do is I set aside 1 day a week for data collection. Just to be able to get it. And it's kind of like a makeup hodgepodge day, and people are all over the place. But it's easier for me to devote 1 40-minute class period, get all the data I need each week. And that has saved my mentality a lot, because sometimes gen ed doesn't know always what I'm looking for, even after the conversations. My binders sit and gather dust. The papers I give them gather dust, they get lost, they don't do them. It's a struggle, and they also have everything else. So my small group of 25 kids, I'm able to do that data collection at that point in time.
I see a couple of comments. We have, how do you keep those binders updated with each IEP change? I recreate my sheets and just give them a copy of those. So then they have them and they can't really say anything about them because I've given them. We have department time. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and team times Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So during those times, we go around and check in with all the teams on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays and see if there's anything we need to discuss about certain students. And then on Tuesdays, actually, within the department meetings, the other intervention specialists and I go around to each of those departments and talk to them about anything they may need from us to help them within the classroom. So those are called our LRE meetings. And then we can also talk about anything else that we might need them to kind of try and collect for us, or what we need to see within that planning of maybe ELA. Maybe we need some writing assignments. So can they work in some more writing assignments in their plans?
So Meredith, am I hearing you right that you would advocate that team time talking about a kid is really important in your job?
Yes. So yes. So I mean, so in those like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I go to each, if I get to 2 teams that day because they have more to talk about or they have a student, but I will check in with each of those teams those days and ask them, is there anyone we need to discuss? What do we need to, if there's someone I do need to discuss with them or update, we do have those conversations.
Could you talk about Brandy's comment? It sounds like Brandy is a little frustrated. I mean,
Yeah.
and as a former principal and in my current role, I hear this a lot. There's so much that you're trying to collect, and you're trying to balance everything out. Do you have any tips or tricks with that to kind of help there?
Go back to that. I say going to the intervention specialist and showing that you're concerned and saying asking what you can
Do it in an
do.
email. Document it. Email should be your best friend.
Yeah, and just asking what can you do to help that student, showing your concern and wanting to be help, I guess. And I don't know the situation exactly. Maybe I don't know if there's timings that you can't work out together, or if it's just, the way the schedule's set up. I don't.
And then collecting and saving stuff. If in doubt, just throw it in the sped teacher's mailbox. I literally get stacks of paper like this big on every child in 5th grade. And I kind of decide what I need to keep and what gets put into a box. And I just put we have boxes upon boxes of stuff. And if you're struggling with being able, what are you supposed to collect and save? Give it to them, let them save it. Let us save it, especially if you're questioning that piece. That should be minimal for you.
And am I hearing you guys say also collaboration is key in this? I mean, a exceptional child and who has multiple goals, it takes multiple hands to make sure things are getting collected the way they need to, so you can paint that picture of progress throughout the year, and that's not easy. There are tech tools and different things that try to help out with some of that, but it really comes down to a good working relationship, a co-teaching or collaborative relationship with the IS.
Right.
The collaborative piece is huge, and that's where that team time really does come in, and it is important to people. Yeah, communication has not been good this school year with other staff. The only reason I am a huge proponent of email, because then there's a documentation trail. And it kind of alleviates a little bit off of your plate, saying, look, I've emailed, I need to know exactly what needs to be done so that I can make this person's job easier. And if you're not willing to give it to me and I have to go and find other ways, here's my documentation.
And I would say, Brandy, if I'm assuming you have access to the IEP. If you see things on the IEP that specifically might be what you're teaching, math or a reading, those areas would be good to hone in on and see what those are. And if you then have questions on those, and then go to the IS and say, I see this is on the IEP. How can I help collect the data on this? Or if you have ideas, I would, so.
I'm intrigued by this Core Plus More.
We have a flex period, which we use, but go ahead, because someone's going to talk.
I figured somebody would ask about that.
I am super intrigued by that.
We actually presented at OMLA a couple years ago. And
you might need to represent.
Yeah, so we wanted to, but then COVID all kind of hit, and there it went. So I teach at Dover Middle School. Okay. Jeremy Evans, who is on the board, is our one of our language arts teachers. So we all love Jeremy. So but no, we started this program about 5 years ago. We actually took the program from Perry Middle School, and they had started it. We went and watched them, and then we've kind of tweaked it over the years. And each period of the day, there's a couple of us that teach Core Plus More. There's usually one language arts teacher, one math teacher. And then we will switch kids every other week, or something like that. We'll focus on a week at a time, usually. But sometimes we're backed into a corner because we have kids that are band, choir, orchestra kids. So we don't have them every day. We have them 3 days a week, 5, it just varies. But we don't have a curriculum for it. We just make it our own. We pick Newsella articles, interesting things that they think would be fun, things like that. Then we'll turn it into a writing activity, just simple things like that. But we get a ton of data collection, and it gives us a chance to work with small groups. Like if they're, doing something, on Newsella or ReadWorks, we use ReadWorks a lot too for literary text. We've used a lot, especially since COVID hit and everything, we've used a lot of, we use Google Classroom. So a lot of different spreadsheets and things that are math activities, like the pixel art where it automatically turns green if the problem is right, or if it's red, it's wrong. Go back and figure out. So like they will be working on that while we have a small group doing something or reteaching or pre-teaching something at the same time. So I love it.
I like that
It
idea.
really works for the kids. So,
Are they missing like an elective class at that point in time, or?
some of them, yes, some of them
Okay.
not. Some of the kids that if they're a band choir orchestra kid, then they'll either opt to be in Core Plus More 5 days a week, or they will do 3 days with us, 2 days in like an explo, like gym or art or whatever. So depending on what their parents and them decide. So some
Okay.
kids are 5 days, some kids are 3 days.
Interesting.
And we start every week. Every teacher starts with the same. Every Monday or Tuesday, if it's a holiday, we start with a grade check. They all get in a progress book and they write down their letter grades, their percentages, and they track from 1 week to the next. If their grade went up, they color it green. If it goes down, they color it red. If it stayed the same, it's yellow. And then they have a spot that they write their missing assignments or things that they can redo or retake, a goal for the week, and then if they made progress in anything.
Nice.
So, and we start that every week. So that way they know, okay, look, you had on your list, this math assignment for so-and-so last week was missing. It's still on your list. We got to get this done. So that it's helpful.
I like that. May have to think about that for how I can do that during.
Yeah, those grade sheets everybody at our middle school does that every Monday. So.
Nice. I like that. With progress monitoring, there's just so much to do and so many different ways to go about it and not go about it. Any data is good data. Any data we can get usually is good data for those pieces. I mean,
and keeping the grades and things is a good thing for transition too. We have found that it's putting some accountability into their pocket. So
well, and it goes right back to that executive functioning piece and those behaviors, and they know exactly, well, I'm not doing too well, so you can look back at this and say, well, you were having a really pretty crummy week and we have 3 office referrals and you have a 12% that week in science. We can kind of put all the dots together and say, well, what was really going on at that point?
Yeah,
I like that. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it.
Sharing. No problem.
Oh, this is a big topic. That.
Well, I see we're getting close to it's 7:53. So I think unless there's anything else, I'll just kind of touch on the last topic we had, which was burnout tips. When I did this survey, it was interesting because I had a question on there. If you were calm, all is good, tolerating, have up and down days, or overstressed, need the year to end now. And what came back, I had 29 responses on this out of, I think, 82 that I sent out. 20% said they were calm, all is good. 62% said tolerating, having ups and down days. And then 17% were overstressed and needed the year to end. And I get that I had moments of that myself, I guess, but to try and help myself with that. And I think, and since COVID is, when we start going back, I guess from school with COVID, it was my mindset. And I told myself that I was going to keep it positive because there was so much negativity. I felt like going back that I couldn't handle hearing things all around me. So myself was having that positive mindset, and I've tried to keep that as much as I can. And that also involves doing activities or doing different things for kids and for staff. So one of the things that I do, which is, I guess you could say it's having fun with the kids daily. And I don't know, this is a little extra work for myself, but it has kept me going and seeing the joy on the kids when they come in the morning. They arrive to school. I'm usually in the atrium with the kids, and I might have daily things like motivational Mondays. We play music when they come in. Tuesday trivia. So I do a lot of things on my own. I get candy and I'll do trivia questions with them, and they can get that. There is like a what if Wednesday, just answering what if questions. Thursdays might be a think about it Thursday or thankful Thursday, and they tell you what they're thankful for. And then Friday might be funny Friday, where there's a funny joke or something. But it's been very interesting to see how that keeps a lot of kids going, and they look for those things each day. So I'm hitting a whole variety of kids, whether it's 5 through 8, 5th through 8th graders. So, and I see kids that just come back for that. So I feel that helps me keep going, because I see what it does for the kids. On the staff side of things, with COVID, we started something called the Positive Posse. And that is actually made up of our assistant principal, myself, and another teacher in our school psych. And we provide, we'll do something for teachers in the beginning of the year. We've done some activities throughout the year with a turkey bowl. We got a turkey and we bowled with it. And it was amazing. Staff that came out and had fun and thought that was great. And they won prizes like crescent rolls or cranberry sauce and things like that. Then we actually talked to my, our principal into doing something fun for a staff meeting. So we did a scavenger hunt for St. Patrick's Day, and we had baskets full of, and they got in teams and worked together. And a lot of the staff said they appreciated that. It was something different and a little more, it kind of helped morale. So I guess on part of that burnout, it's actually helping others. If you have that, if you feel okay, helping others get through and being the support person for them is something going to help other people from being burnt out and get through the rest of the year. And of course, the mental piece of taking care of yourself, and even doing some of those mindfulness videos for yourself, physically, taking the time for yourself. Recently, I had a little moment of high blood pressure, which is not me. And so that kind of opened my eyes of, I need to take lunch for myself. I need to take that time, breathe. Because I think a lot of us are very go-getters. We work harder to
Get everything done.
And we try to please others, and we want to make everything good. But as hard as it is, you have to stop, sometimes say no, take a moment and breathe. Because it's amazing what stress can do to you, and you don't even realize it, that it's building up. So, and it's just supporting each other is another thing, and helping each other out with that.
Mine's silly. I pack lunch that I'm looking forward to each day, and I shut my door and I don't talk to anybody at lunchtime. It is completely quiet, and I started watching TV during that time, like Abbott Elementary, and just something to completely not school related and just completely decompress at that. Although I am on the couch once I get home for about 20 minutes and there's a nap, and I don't want to talk to anybody and leave me alone kind of deal every day.
Can I also add that there's a wonderful speaker, Missy McLean, who we've had on these virtual PDs, who has lovely resources on burnout, things for self-care. I would highly suggest you seek her out. She's from Akron Children's Hospital. I know she's going to continue to be a speaker. She actually will be one of our featured speakers at our state conference, and she'll be doing a track of sessions. And so I would highly recommend seeking her out. Lovely resources, and also lots of great suggestions on how to take care of yourself.
Yeah. You have to find what works for you, honestly. And use some of those resources.
Well, Melissa and Meredith, I see we're at 8 o'clock and we made a promise to be 1 hour. I want to first say thank you to both of you for facilitating tonight. Great topics. Love the ideas being shared. Couple housekeeping items. We did have 2 winners tonight. Katrina and Tanya, please put your email in the chat box. We do give gift cards. I don't know if we have Chipotle tonight or Barnes and Noble. I'll have to see what we have in our gift card box, but we'll get that out to you. Again, I want to thank all of you for all the work that you have done this school year. I hope you have a great end of the school year, and don't miss our May 18th virtual PD. This is where we will be doing giveaways, prizes the entire night. And so we really want to celebrate you. Please share this with your middle school colleagues, and we hope to see you then. With that, Meredith, Melissa, I'll let you have the last word.
Thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Meredith.
Yeah, thank you. Glad everyone showed up here and hopefully you took something away from it. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Hope to see everyone.